Welcome. This is the Drupal usability meeting for July 16th, 2021. I'm Benji Fisher, sharing my screen and moderating the meeting. And also present are Thomas Howell and Marcus Vinicius Alves de Silva Souza. I hope I didn't mispronounce that too badly. It's the first time at the meeting for Marcus, so thanks for joining us. There is one issue that I would like to bring up. It's an issue that I've worked on myself. Provide a module-specific permissions form, and the issue ID is 3216341. And I think I now have a local Drupal site running. Let me get an admin UI. An admin login, that is. And this is related to something we talked about a few weeks ago, the permissions page, which of course is overwhelming and can be a performance problem. So just with the standard profile installed, you already have a whole lot of options on this page. And what this issue does is create a page with the permissions just for any particular module. So where's a module that has some permissions associated to it? The comment module must have some permissions, yes. So if you open that link, there is such a link already on Drupal, but I've changed it in this patch so that it now goes to this page that has just the permissions for the module you selected. But much less overwhelming. And you also have the option of putting in a comma-separated list of module names, and you get the permissions just for those modules you've mentioned. And the order doesn't matter. You could put node first, and you'll still get the modules listed in alphabetical order. It also doesn't matter whether the module is enabled or not. If it's not enabled, or if there is no such module, there's no module foo. The page still works. You just don't see any permissions from the actions module because it's not enabled. You don't see any permissions from the foo module because there is no such module. One thing is that if none of the modules provide permissions, which might be because they're disabled or there is no such module, or just there are some modules that don't provide permissions, you will get an access denied rather than a page not found. So I think that's pretty clearly a UI improvement over the previous state of affairs. And of course, there might be room for improvement. So for instance, let's enable the content moderation module. And another thing, and you get the confirmation page that you also have to enable the workflows module in order to enable content moderation. So in the confirmation message, you get two modules have been enabled, content moderation, workflows. That part was already there. With this patch, you also get the addition configure related permissions And related permissions is a link to the page just for the permissions for those two modules. And perhaps there's room for improvement in that little UI addition. What do you think of that link, or how I've labeled the link?
I like what you've done. I think this is what we talked.
Hello, I don't hear what you're saying. Is that just me?
No, I liked what you talked about. I thought that it was spot on. That's just my opinion. I don't. I'd rather see it get in there than make a big deal about any changes. Could you hear me?
Yes, yes. Marcus, do you have any opinion? Do you think the text I've added is clear enough? Configure related permissions?
Yes, it's clear.
Okay. Yeah, I think this is, the overall patch is, I think, a real win for usability. I was just looking for other opinions to see if maybe we could tweak it a little. You
I mean, were there specific concerns you had? Like anything that really, like you felt you just made a convenient choice? Because I guess this just is such a big improvement. Like it's, it's because you still have access to all of the large overall permissions. It's not like we've degraded any previous behavior, but we've added in something that before just wow, like this is just so much better. Um,
yeah, it's just the general principle that in user interface text, it often helps to get a second opinion.
mhm.
And I guess if I just,
I mean, there are follow-up issues. Like any improvement I would recommend is a follow-up issue. It isn't a change, like even the text, I didn't see anything really egregious. It's more like um I would like to be able to get to, like, I would like some of the metadata on this page regarding what modules these permissions come from, for instance. So like if it came from the node module, then be able to click on it and have it go to that node specific page. Like I would like two ways to get to that form. One originating from the extend page, one originating from the permissions page. But to me, that is absolutely an add-on. Like that has nothing to do with the work that you've submitted today.
okay, well, certainly follow-up issues are worth considering at this point. So first of all, what I was demonstrating here is when I add the fragment or the anchor um, hashtag module dash node, that takes me to the section of the page for the node module. And without the patch, that's where you would go from the permissions page. Or if I say, what was the other comment? Was what we were looking at, just to prove the point. If I change it to comment, there is an anchor on the page to the comment, and that's where it currently goes. So you would like some way
I
to
don't think I would
navigate.
change. Yeah, I don't think I would change comment and things like that. I mean, like, is comment the module? I thought things like comment and contextual links were also like if you had permissions that span multiple modules that were all comment related, this was kind of a section that would aggregate those things. So, or
Oh no,
no,
I don't think there's anything like that.
okay. So if
Um,
you have a module that's the comment module, that anchor That is, you're just really, your form is focusing in on those particular permissions.
Yeah, each permission is provided by one and only one module,
Yeah.
and they're grouped under the corresponding module on this page, with one exception.
Yeah.
The one exception is that the permission, where is it? Access content, not administer content, but where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Better be here. Basic page, article, access. Oh my gosh, I'm not seeing it. Where is access content? It should show up here.
Because I could have sworn that I thought some of the permissions, like under content, some of those permissions could come from contrib or custom modules. But I may, like, I really haven't looked at it specifically for so long.
Yeah, having looked pretty closely at the code, I think I can say
Safely.
pretty definitely.
Yep. Okay. Well, then, I mean, then it doesn't matter. Like, even I wouldn't make an add-on. That's moot. Like, the anchor tag is fine if you're on here.
And of course, looking at this page a little more closely, this is just the node and comment modules. The permissions, the full permissions page is part of the breadcrumb.
Right.
Just because of the path I've chosen, it's admin people slash permissions slash module, and then slash whatever module or modules you want to look at.
Right. Yeah, I don't have any, I don't even have any, like, maybe after using it, it will, like, something could pop up. Could you show me the form again for where you go from the extend page? And I don't mean to dominate the conversation, so
that's okay. What do you want to see?
I just go to any individual module. Like, let's go to a contrib module.
I don't think I have any contrib modules.
In here. Okay, yeah, just
but I
anything. Just look at the module permissions. So the form that you've added, essentially, from anything.
Well, we've got comment and node modules in this tab.
Okay, so looking at the comment and node modules, is there a way to get, no, it's all moot, like, because this is a baseline, extend is across the top, you don't need it. No, I can't, I really, honestly, like, this is just a pretty basic improvement that I can't complain about this. If you want to go back to where it came from, you're just going to click on the extend link again. This is showing everything you need. I'm wondering, yeah, I mean, if you had 10 different permission sets, this is still going to be easier to read. So let's assume the worst case scenario. It's not going to be any worse than the existing. So the worst case scenario is someone has 20 permission groups and like 5 or 6 pages worth of permissions, like scrolling down in a single contrib module or a single custom module. But it's not going to be any worse than the way permissions already are today. It's still going to be better because it would just be that module's information. You still get back to extend. You still go to permissions through the same regular path. There's not, you have a breadcrumb that allows you to get to permissions even faster from here. Yeah, any recommendation that I would make, I don't like, filter. That would be it. And I think that would probably be an add-on, having the ability to filter based upon permission name on these pages.
Yeah, I think there's already an issue open to add filtering to the permissions page, which is a very different approach.
Yes.
Um,
I would
and the
just
way
add it in both contexts. That's so I know the reason I had a problem with filter in the main page is a lot of times I had seen weirdness where people had similarly named permissions in different modules. And so if you tried to filter post comments and you had 3 different things called post comments, you didn't know which post comments permission you were editing. That was like one of the downsides. So if the filter gets added to the main page, I would add a filter here. If filter doesn't get added to the main page, then it's moot because you can just use an in-page search anyway. So
yeah, the way the way this page is implemented, it will automatically get any changes that are made to the main form.
well then, all right, I'm going to shut up now because I like it. I want it. Good.
Yeah, I think under remaining tasks, I suggested a few follow-up issues. So when you add a content type, you get permissions specific to that content type to create or edit own. So I suggested a follow-up issue to add a link in the confirmation message anytime you add such configuration. The help topics module, which is still experimental, and the existing hook help has a bunch of links to the existing page where they're using the appropriate anchor on the main permissions page. And I suggested updating those as a follow-up issue. And then there's something technical about code cleanup. So there are already a few follow-up issues. Okay, so let's consider that done. I will add a comment mentioning that we discussed it here, and if you think of something else, of course, feel free to add a comment later. And then I just noticed that Derek or DWW asked for comments on this issue. So this is issue 3150294. New translations for moderated nodes are not created in the initial workflow state. So this is related to the content moderation module that I enabled as my example. So let's read through this. We've defined a workflow with 3 states: draft, needs review, published. We have 2 roles, author and admin. The author can create new content in the draft state and move it to needs review. The admin can move it from needs review to published. They've applied a patch from an issue that's now fixed, so maybe that line from the issue summary should be removed. An author has created a node in English, sets it to needs review. The author wants to add a German translation, translates it, clicks add. The form where he can edit the node and add the German text is displayed. When he clicks save, he gets an error message, invalid state transition from needs review to needs review. And logically, this is correct. Like we understand why it happens. But shouldn't they be created in the draft state? So then there are a bunch of options. And I guess Derek is asking for feedback on these three options. So the first option is to have a simple toggle for the current behavior or the default state. The user interface would be a checkbox. You'd have to think about the wording, and the setting is a Boolean. And the example UI would be to have a checkbox. It's not really a screenshot, but just a text version. New translations use default moderation state, and a checkbox next to that. If not checked, new translations will use the current state of the default revision. So I guess this is not a setting you see when creating the new translation. It's a setting that the site builder sees when setting up the content type. And option B is have a simple toggle for the current behavior versus using the default moderation state, and have, so it's basically the same as option A, but instead of a single on-off checkbox, have two radios. And there's some difference in the back end. So the setting would store a string rather than a Boolean. In some user interfaces, explicit radios for different options can be more clear than a checkbox if each choice requires a little explanation. So the example UI moderation state for new translations, option 1, default moderation state, option 2, current moderation state of the default revision. And option C is to store the explicit moderation state for new translations. The setting ID would be translation default moderation state or something. Allow it to have magic value that means the current moderation state of the default revision in the original language. The UI might be weird or complicated and would be more powerful for edge cases.
This is, I kind of feel like I wish we had Christina on. Do you have opinions?
If you'd like, I could enable translation on my test site and we could at least reproduce the current behavior.
Let's do that. I think that's the smart move.
Okay. So let's see, I have to enable translation. Content translation, and I'm sure that will require additional modules. Have to install language, and then, of course, here's my new link. Well, I'm not going to create any additional users, I don't think. But what I will do is go to configuration and then regional language. I will add French because I speak a little French and no German. Not sure whether I need to click save there. And the other thing I have to do is go to workflows. Or actually, maybe this is already configured. So this is a little different from what's described. So let's actually add a workflow called needs review. Let's just rearrange it in the UI. And the thing is, there's no needs review to needs review transition. But there are transitions from draft to needs review and from needs review to published. So let me add those. From draft to needs review. And maybe I can just add to the existing transition that you can go from needs review to publish. Okay, I think that's all I need. Yeah, that should do. And let me add some content. Oh, do I have to say that articles are translatable? Let's see. Those are all the required fields. Yeah, I guess I do need to configure translation. Where is that? Content and language translation. I think this is it. Setting. No, I guess this isn't where it is. Where is the setting for which things can be translated?
I've never built a site with multilingual or translations. So that's one of the reasons why I'd be more comfortable having additional folks on here. So
oh, I've set it up. Oh, here we go. I think I have to select this checkbox. Okay. And then I have to say that articles are translatable. That should do it. And now I get the translate tab. Oh, but first I want to move this. This is published. So I want to move this to the draft state. Oh, oh. Wait a minute. Did I not enable that workflow for articles? This workflow applies to, that's what I forgot to do. Let's also enable it for basic page, why not? So now I should be able to set this to draft. Save that. And once it's in the draft, I should be able to set it to needs review. It's funny, the order of those. I thought I put needs review in between. But anyway. So now it's in the needs review state. And I will now translate it, create a French translation, and I should get the error right now. No? I know a little French. I don't really know enough to.
C'est un test.
The current state is needs review. But I have permission to change it to published. I guess I would have to do this as user who doesn't have that permission. So it's a little more complicated. I'd have to add another user and another role and log in as that user. And so, anyway, this is the point where I would get an error if I did not have permission to go from
right
review to published. And there is no transition from needs review to needs review. And then when I saved it, that's where the error would come up. So where would we be configuring this? Translatable.
I think it's maybe disable the transition in this part for the user with no permission.
There we go. So now even administrator doesn't have permission to go from needs review to published. And let me just reload this page. The current state is needs review. We no longer see that it's moving. And I should get an error message, invalid state transition from needs review to needs review. So we see the error.
So can we look at his ABC options again?
Yes, where is the right tab? Here we go. And it's
What's the BC stand for again? where it's
Backwards compatibility.
backwards compatibility.
So I'm still wondering where this would be set. Would it be in the content type? Would be maybe an option on this page, language settings.
Could you go back? Like this location looks right to me. Was it even stated where that would be added in the issue?
I don't think it's mentioned in the issue summary, so not the parts I went through. Proposed resolution, find a way to preserve the existing behavior for backwards compatibility, either document a way to override or configure this for new translations. Option A, have a simple toggle, but it doesn't say where. Maybe in the later comments it will talk about that. So let's assume for the sake of argument that that this is where they would put it on under language settings for the content type. And I guess, let's see, another.
Okay,
I
so
guess publishing options is where you have the option to create new revision. That is automatically checked, I think, because we have translation enabled. So I think this is definitely the right page for it, and because it deals with both revisions and language settings. And I think putting it under the language settings vertical tab is the right place to put it. Go ahead.
the only concern I have is for a site that has many different content types. Then I guess they have to go in and configure each and every one of their content types. I was just wondering if it's a site, if it's supposed to be like, is it a behavior that is dependent upon what language is being chosen? Like, would you want a behavior for French but not German, or German but not French? Is it something? So is it irregardless of the different languages you have? Am I thinking about this in all the wrong ways?
Well, you're looking for edge cases, which is a good thing, but I do think that would be an edge case. I think generally people would want consistency, and
Right.
creating a German translation should not be fundamentally different from creating a French translation.
I get the consistency, but then that comes down to the why are we setting it by, and I'm not saying we shouldn't, but why are we setting it or thinking about setting it by content type rather than globally?
So globally would mean in the workflow setting.
Mm-hmm.
So the
There would be a
workflow,
language. You would
you
add a
say what
language.
states there are. Say again?
On the workflows page, you would have a section called multi-language behavior, or something like multilingual behavior.
So perhaps in this last section, which currently it's a details element with only one item in it. default moderation state is this select list, draft needs review, published or archived, and then you would add it here. Yeah, I think you're right. I think this would be a good place to put it.
The main reason is in one instance, we're tracking it as part of the configuration for each and every content type. I don't know if you need both. I mean, is it something that you need the granularity? I don't understand the use case well enough, because I see that we want to make an option for working around, but it doesn't feel like this issue is even solving the problem. It feels like this issue is queuing up solving the problem.
So let's assume for the sake of argument that this now is the right place to put the option. Would you rather have a checkbox or two radio buttons to describe the two options?
Lately, I've been more fond of radio buttons. Or, I mean, yeah, it doesn't just like the way that I would do it if I wanted to follow the kind of paradigm that's here is I would actually have a drop down with the state you pick. But that wasn't one of the three options that was presented.
What was that not the same as option C?
Was that option C?
What was option C? Store the explicit moderation state for new translations. Allow it to have a magic value that means current state.
Yeah, I don't like hidden stuff. So I do like it being in the UI. It's just checkboxes, I am not a super big fan of. I prefer something that looks like the default moderation state, and you would define, like, it wouldn't say default moderation state, it would say what they had there, but you'd pick what state or behavior you wanted in a dropdown. But in lieu of that, I would go with the radio button.
So a select list would be sort of consistent with the form element that's already there.
Correct.
But if there are just the two options,
it also it avoids like, so let's say that let's say that the future state where they fix things is more than just two options, like they have to offer multiple ways of managing the translation. So you have your backwards compatible, you have a couple of different options to kind of address what was alluded to in option C, but you want to address it with listed options. A dropdown uses the least amount of screen real estate. It makes it very visibly obvious what you've chosen. I can't recall a ton of places where we use radio buttons. But just behaviorally, I'm not a big fan of checkboxes. I don't like Booleans.
So I guess my initial thought was the same, that I would prefer radio buttons, but looking at this form, I sort of think that this new option is an add-on to this form element that's already here. So do we apply the default moderation state to new translations as well as new nodes, or I guess new entities? And in that context, I kind of think that a checkbox is more appropriate. It really is a Boolean.
Okay, then I will back that.
Yeah, I guess I'm not sure where whether that I'm thinking of a pattern. Like I do not have a particular example in mind of where that pattern is used, but I just sort of have this opinion, this unsupported opinion, that that a checkbox is an appropriate way to indicate sort of an add-on to another option that you're selecting.
I'm sorry, I have another meeting right now. I have to leave.
Okay, well.
Thank you for the meeting.
Oh, just before you leave, if you either comment on the usability issue or just post your Drupal.org username in Slack, then I'll be able to give you credit for attending the meeting.
Okay, thank you.
So I think that the checkbox is a reasonable approach now, and if people differed, modifying that in the future with an additional follow-up issue, should someone else disagree, is really trivial. So I think that's what, if that's what your gut's saying. My problem with the radio buttons on this form is I think it gets too weird. I think that's why I would prefer a list to select from. But again, I hear your argument, so I would go with the checkbox. And if additional fixes are forthcoming, you can shift the checkbox into something else. But it won't be very confusing. Like, it'll be obviously a workflow setting, as long as it's properly labeled, et cetera, et cetera. It works well in this location.
Okay. All right, then I will leave a comment on this issue as well. And I think we can just wrap up here.
Perfect. Thank you, Benji.
Great. Thank you, Thomas. And hope to do it again next week.
See you next week. Bye-bye.